All right, so over the last couple of weeks, we have been having to contend with this bullshit narrative that is coming out of mainly the Republican Party, but also the corrupt establishment of the Democratic Party, and basically the entirety of the mainstream press, where there was this narrative forming that the reason why a lot of these business leaders or these CEOs were coming out and saying, oh, we can't fill our job positions over here, is because that workers are suddenly lazy, and they're collecting these unemployment benefits, and they would rather just sit at home on their asses, collecting all these unemployment benefits, and that's why there was what they were calling a labor shortage. Now, we talked about how this was really just corporate propaganda and how there was really no evidence that there was a correlation between the unemployment benefits and a lack of people searching for jobs. If anything, it was a reverse correlation of that, in that giving people these unemployment benefits propped them up enough so that they were, not falling off a cliff and becoming homeless, etc. And that it would actually lead to them being able to go and look for work that is better for them, better suited for them, better pay, better benefits, etc. And so this narrative has been completely collapsing. And so I have a New York Times article here for you guys where they explain how this is collapsing. And this article is interesting for a number of reasons, not just because this entire narrative that they have been a part of pushing for this entire time is completely collapsed, but also because of the language that they choose to use. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute here. So, where jobless benefits were cut, jobs are still hard to fill. Almost like there's no correlation between these two things. So Missouri scrapped federal pay to the unemployed, saying it kept people out of the labor market, but so far workers seem to still be choosy. But so far workers still seem to be choosy. Choosy. That's the word that the New York Times decides to use. Choosy meaning workers don't want to go back to their shitty benefits, shitty conditions, low-paid, starvation wage jobs. That's them being choosy, according to the New York Times. So again, the rhetoric that they choose to use in these articles matters, and they're clearly framing this from the corporate side of this. So they continue. With a little bit of anecdotes here. So Maryland Heights, Missouri. By lunchtime, the representatives from the recruiting agency Express Employment Professionals decided to pack up and leave the job fair at the St. Louis suburb of Maryland Heights. Hardly anyone had showed up. Quote, "We were hoping we would see pre-pandemic levels," said Courtney Boyle, general manager of Express. After all, Missouri had just cut off federal unemployment benefits. By the way, these federal unemployment benefits that they're talking about, these were already appropriated funds. So it's not like they're saving anybody money. This was money that was already designed to go to these people, and they're just cutting it off, starving their own populations for this effort. And they continue, business owners had complained that the assistance, as Governor Mike Parson put it, quote, "incentivized people to stay out of the workforce." He made Missouri one of the first 4 states to halt the federal aid. A total of 26 have said that they will do so by next month. But in the St. Louis metropolitan area, where jobless rate was 4.2% in May, those who expected the June 12th termination would unleash a flood of job seekers were disappointed. Workforce development officials said they had seen virtually no uptick in applicants since the governor's announcement, which ended a $300 weekly supplement to other benefits. And the online job site Indeed found that in states that have abandoned the federal benefits, clicks on job postings were below the national average. So again, not only were they wrong about this, but they were as wrong as you could possibly be. There was a reverse correlation compared to what they were saying the correlation was. They were saying there's a correlation between people getting these unemployment benefits and them not wanting to go seek work, and the exact opposite of that is what turns out to be the case. On top of that, there were consequences that we also talked about in a different video that I made. States cutting $300 a week unemployment benefits face $12 billion economic hit. So again, it's not like this money was going into people's pockets and then they go out and spend it on drugs and alcohol. This was money they were using that they were putting directly back into their local economies. And so these people come out and they decide, we want to put these people in such a precarious position that they are no longer going to be able to spend that money in their communities because they don't have any fucking money. And not only did this not help with the unemployment, not only did this not force people to go back and search for these low wage, shitty benefit jobs, but in addition to that, you're costing your economy money. This is so fucking stupid. We knew this from the beginning, that this is exactly how it was going to play out. We saw the results from the $1,400 stimulus checks. The effects of those $1,400 stimulus checks, people were spending that on daily necessities. They were spending it on groceries. They were spending it on car repairs. They were spending it on rent. They were spending it on all of these different things that inject money straight back into their local economies. So it's not like this money, when you hand it to people, it just disappears. This money directly goes back and boosts your own economy. So it was stupid completely from the beginning. And we knew this is exactly how it was going to turn out. And they continue, and this is where it gets interesting with the rhetoric that they choose to use in this article. They say, of course it's early, but conversations with employers who are hunting for workers and people who are hunting for jobs in the St. Louis area revealed stark differences in expectations and assumptions about what a day's work is worth. The divide raises a fundamental question of what a healthy labor market looks like. Does it mean that workers are on such a knife edge that they feel compelled to take the first job that comes along? Or is it one in which employers are the ones who have to scramble and feel pressured to raise wages and improve working conditions? Are the economy and the public better off when workers get to be choosy or when employers do? Well, let me answer this question. First of all, workers are not being choosy, okay? They're not being choosy when they're asking for the basic bare necessity of a living wage and decent benefits. That's not being choosy. That's asking for the bare fucking minimum. That's how corporatist the New York Times is choosing to frame this issue, okay? There's nothing choosy about it. And by the way, even if you're a fucking capitalist, the argument from a capitalist perspective on this issue would be that there should be a level playing field between the employers and the employees. There is not a level playing field when you have the situation that they're trying to create with this type of narrative. When you have, you're forcing people back into the labor market in such a precarious situation after the consequences of the economic devastation of the pandemic. You're forcing them back into a labor market where they have no choice, no competition between employers. They just have to go and accept the first shitty job with shitty benefits and shitty pay that comes across their table. That's how our current system is oriented, okay? That's the system that they want. So they don't believe in a free market system where the employers have to compete for the workers and vice versa. They just want this to be from an entirely employer-based side, right? So that's the narrative that the New York Times is trying to put out. But listen, the overarching point of all of this is we were all right from the beginning, okay? This wasn't hard to predict. We knew that this is exactly what was going to happen. We know putting cash directly into the hands of people who are struggling benefits everybody. It benefits them. It stabilizes their lives in many ways. It allows them to afford the basic necessities that they're unable to in that moment. It boosts the local economy. It helps everybody across the board. So this was a bullshit narrative from the beginning. I'm glad it's starting to be debunked, but honestly, just shame on everybody who is pushing this bullshit narrative. Shame on the Republican Party. Shame on the corrupt Democratic establishment who is pushing it, and shame on the entire media ecosystem that was feeding into these lies that have now led to dozens of states cutting these unemployment benefits and really screwing Americans who are already in precarious positions and pushing them over the edge. So it's absolutely ridiculous. Not only do we need the unemployment benefits to be reinstated, we should be doing monthly stimulus checks. I know that that hasn't really been part of the conversation recently, but we still need monthly stimulus checks. We should be talking about a basic UBI after seeing the results of how successful those original $1,400 checks are. So that's the direction we need to move. I'm glad this theory is being debunked. And yeah, nice job, everybody, that we wasted all of our time and it resulted in all of these economic and humanitarian consequences. It was just an absolute waste of time being pushed by the Republican and the Democratic establishment.